So, like you all mentioned, the different types of sensory memory are the iconic sensory memory, where we take visual images from our environment; echoic, which involves storing and processing of auditory information; haptic, which involves pressure, pain, texture, so our skin as a sense organ; olfactory, which involves smell; and gustatory, which involves taste. So these are the different sense organs and different types of sensory memory where we get information from to process it further. Can we move to the next slide? Yes. So next, we go towards the short-term memory. It is mainly acoustic, it is mainly auditory and somewhat partially visual. This is the memory which is also called as active memory, and it contains all those things which we are currently thinking about. जो चीज़ें अभी हमारे दिमाग के अंदर चल रही होती हैं, हमारे अवेयरनेस के अंदर, those are the things which are part of our short term memory. And in Freudian psychology, it has been referred to as the conscious mind. So, whenever we pay attention and think actively about information coming from our sensory memory, we tend to take it to a short term memory. And a lot of times, when things in our short term memory or in our awareness, when they are not attended to properly or when they are not rehearsed repetitively, they tend to get forgotten. And when we tend to think about them more or process it better, try to understand its meaning, then it has gone to the next stage of memory, which is the long term memory. Right? Information in short term memory usually lasts for 20 to 30 seconds, and we can try to learn better or hold information longer in our short term memory through various techniques like chunking. So, does anybody here know what chunking is? Anyone who has an idea? Yes, Ashita.
Ma'am, it's basically taking a large group of things and breaking it down into small groups, like you would do if you're remembering a phone number.
Yes, exactly. Right. So, can we try out a little um, number recall activity to see if chunking really works for us? Can we try, Ashita?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'll be saying a number and let's just see how what works easier, like a normal recall or like memorizing it through chunking. Okay. So after I'm done speaking the numbers, just try to recall them.
Okay.
All right. 0, 8, 1, 1, 2, 7, 8, 8, 2. Go ahead.
I remember the beginning few. It was 0811
Hmm.
2. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like use chunking. Like without that, that's how much I remember.
Sorry.
No, without chunking, that's how much I would remember.
Right. Let's just try the same number with adding chunks. 0, 8, 1, 127, 882.
Okay, then it would be 081 127 and 882.
Yes, right, exactly. So this is how chunking works. It helps us to memorize better. Thank you, Ashita. So just like Ashita said, one common example is dialing a phone number. So we keep playing that same number over and over in our head till we have dialed it. And after we're done, after the use of that particular information is over, the information is generally out of our short term memory. It's either forgotten or it's out of awareness, right? Can we go to the next slide? Yes. So, short term memory is also often interchangeably used with working memory. However, they do not have the exactly same meaning. We'll be discussing about it in our further slides. So, now about the capacity of short term memory. George Miller is a famous psychologist, and in 1956, he gave a study which told us about the capacity of short term memory. So, he gave us a magic number 7 plus minus 2, which meant कि जो हमारी शॉर्ट टर्म मेमोरी होती है उसकी कैपेसिटी इज बिटवीन 5 to 9 numbers, right? So we tend to remember better when the range of information is between 5 to 9, and anything higher than that is often difficult to recall. Can we move forward? Yeah. The next type of memory is long term memory, which is it is the type of memory where information is stored for extended periods of time, ranging from hours to a lifetime. And just like auditory memory was primarily acoustic information, long term memory is mainly semantic, which means it has information which generally has a lot more meaning, a lot more depth, right? And it includes all of our knowledge and experiences that we've had throughout our life, our facts, personal experiences, and our skills, right? It refers to the continuous storage of information. And a lot of times, this information lies outside of our conscious awareness, but it can be recalled into our awareness with some effort. Naturally, कुछ चीज़ों को ज़्यादा एफर्ट लगता है रिकॉल करने में एज कम्पेयर टू other things which need lesser effort, right? The types of long term memory. So there are two major types, which is explicit and implicit memory. Explicit memory is the kind of information that we are aware of, things that we are conscious about, things which are easier to recall and verbalize, right? Its subtype includes semantic and episodic memory, and implicit memory are those information and memories which are unconscious or unintentional. So it is those things which we can't verbalize very easily, things we are not very mindful about, but they just tend to happen naturally, right? And their subtype includes procedural and emotional memory. Can you move forward? Yeah. So just like we were talking about explicit and implicit memory, उनके सब टाइप्स पे आते हैं एक बारी के लिए. So explicit के सब टाइप्स होते हैं semantic and episodic. Semantic is facts and definitions, and episodic is our personal experiences and events. Can somebody give me an example of semantic and episodic memory? This is something that we use in our everyday life. Think about it. Yes, Ashita.
Can semantic be pin codes?
Right, absolutely. What about episodic memories?
Could be like our fifth birthday or like a past memory.
Yes, yes, right. So it can be any personal experience or event from our life. For example, our fifth birthday, like Ashita said, or our 12th farewell, or something like that, right? Can anybody give me an example of procedural and emotional memories?
Could one be driving a car or something?
Yes, absolutely. You're right, Trisha. Um, Driving a car is a procedural memory. We are not often very, very mindful, and sometimes it almost becomes automatic, right? What about emotional memory, Prisha?
I mean, I'm not too sure about this, but I don't know.
It's all right. So sometimes our emotional responses are also very implicit. That is, we are not very mindful or aware that, I am getting emotional. Like, for example, let's just take the example of crying. Sometimes you might have noticed that we tend to get teary or we tend to cry when we see somebody else cry, or when there is somebody in the TV who's crying, right? So that is sort of a conditioning that happens, that when we see somebody cry, or sometimes when we say that your laughter is contagious, we don't even realize that we're smiling or laughing just when we are seeing somebody else smile or laugh. So sometimes our actions, our emotions, and behaviors also tend to be implicit in nature. All right. Okay. Can we move forward? Hmm. Moving forward to the process of memory. So, just like we had initially touched upon in the beginning, that there are three major processes which are involved in memory, which is encoding, that is taking in of all the information from our environment; storage, that is how do we maintain that information over time; and lastly, retrieval, that is how do we bring back that information from our storage to our conscious awareness when we need it. And all these stages and their functioning is very, very important to the smooth operation of memory. So moving forward to the first step of the process, which is encoding. Just like I think Zara had mentioned in the beginning, that it is the first step where we take in information from all sense organs and we attend to it. So it involves converting sensory information into a form which can be stored into the brain. And it can be visual, which is it can be images. तो आपने कोई चीज़ देखी हो, उसको हम लोग एनकोड करते हैं। जो चीज़ हम सुन रहे हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू लिसनिंग टू मी राइट नाउ, यू आर आल्सो एनकोडिंग माय वॉइस and storing it as information. It can be tactile, which is touch, and it can also be semantic, right? Which is any, for example, mathematical formulas or subdivisions, theorems, all those things. And effective encoding strategies include creating associations or using mnemonics, which can enhance memory retention. Do you guys know what mnemonics are? Anybody who has an idea about what mnemonics are?
Yes, ma'am.
Um, can you let me know what it is?
Yeah, so like maybe no, that those are acronyms, but maybe like a word or a sentence. Like if we need to remember some rule or like a formula,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we can just remember the first initials of the words or like something like that.
Right, you're absolutely right. Do you use mnemonics in your studies, Vachi?
Yeah, like sometimes in chemistry and everything. So it's really helpful
Can you
to
give us an example so everybody is able to understand better?
like the periodic table, so like the first 20 elements. So
Mm-hmm.
I just have remembered any basically the initial we can say,
Hmm.
or even like the symbols. So K, then CA,
Right.
LIVE, like that.
Hmm.
So or maybe we can like make not a song out of it, but like something similar,
Yeah.
so that like a tune, so that we can remember better.
Better. Yes, right. I think that's an amazing idea. Yes, Sarah.
I'd like to give another example. So I was also a computer science student, and
Mm.
I won't go into the details, but there's this one aspect where we're supposed to remember the layers of a software, like an operating software, and in that we have this mnemonic device, but it's also an acronym that goes, "Please don't teach students pointless acronyms."
Hmm.
So the every first like P is physical, and then D is data type, and it goes on like that. So I won't get into the details, but basically that, like how physic like please ka initial P
Yeah.
is also the initial of another layer that we have to remember, and
Hmm.
it goes on like that.
Right. That's very creative. Nice. Yes. So mnemonics and different memory retention strategies can help us to encode information better. And once we encode things better, when they are encoded properly and attended properly, they tend to be stored even better. Right. So, for example, can we move forward? Yes. So if I ask you, what do you think, which type of encoding we use if we want to memorize this particular picture? बताओ सारा.
This would be iconic memory. Like our first sensory memory would be iconic memory because we're looking at the picture and trying to decipher it.
Yes. So you're sort of right, but iconic memory was a type of sensory memory. So encoding के अभी जो हमने last slide में types करे थे उसमें से बताओ वाची.
So visual.
Yes, visual encoding. So you're sort of right, Zara, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
understand.
visual encoding. Yes. All right. What about the next one? What type of encoding would we use here? Can you move forward? हाँ जी आशिता.
Semantic.
Yes, exactly. So here we'll use semantic coding because इस picture में addition हो रहा है. Yes, Vachi.
Yeah, I was about to semantic one.
Yeah, right. And since addition is a concept, that is why हम इसको semantic encoding में include करेंगे. Great. Okay. So after we are done with our encoding, we move to the next process of memory, which is storage. So storage involves maintaining encoded information over time. So जो भी चीज हम लोगों ने अभी तक encode करी है उसको maintain कैसे करते हैं, that is storage, right? So it can vary from short term to long term storage depending on how deeply the information is processed, which means that अगर information बहुत अच्छे से process हुई है, then it is kept in the long term storage, and if it is not processed as strongly, then it is in the short term memory. And different techniques like rehearsal and chunking and use of mnemonic devices can help to improve storage, right? These are techniques that we've already discussed before. So let's just go ahead. The final process of memory is retrieval, that is getting access to the stored information when we need it. So, for example, when I asked you initially, like I asked Sarah what she meant by sensory memory, she was able to gather back the knowledge and answer in the class with the information that she already had. So, that was retrieval. She was able to retrieve that information, right? Retrieval can be influenced by various factors like the context in which the information was encoded and the presence of retrieval cues. So retrieval cues are basically ऐसे छोटे छोटे external or internal stimuli जिसकी वजह से हमारा retrieval improve हो जाता है, right? For example, sometimes a smell can act as a reminder from our childhood meal. Like there are these particular crayons जो हम लोग बचपन में यूज करते थे, and once we smell it we feel the same way, right? Can you give me an example of a retrieval cue that works for you or something? हाँ जी वाची बताओ.
So it's similar. So for example, if we went to maybe a birthday party, or let's say it's our birthday party, and we are wearing a certain perfume, and it went really well. So like maybe after a month or so, you smell that the same perfume, so you go back to that um what do you say moment? Maybe like I'm not sure if this is correct.
Yes, right. Absolutely. Right. Now tell me one thing. Are retrieval cues always helpful or can they create problems sometimes as well? Think about it. Yes, Rashika.
Sometimes I don't think it would be really nice to retrieve things that you don't want to. You might have bad memories as well, which which would be there in your brain, and you don't want to retrieve that back.
Yes, that's true. Can you give me an example where retrieval cues can generate bad memories? Any example that comes to your mind?
Like, I don't have a particular example for it, but maybe like you got hurt somewhere in a particular situation,
Yeah,
and you might develop like fear for the same situation next time.
absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes. Hanji Ashita, you were saying something?
And I was just giving an example that it could be of like anyone who's diagnosed with PTSD, that if they're in the same area within where an incident occurred, it could take them back to that.
Hmm. Right. You're
Yeah,
absolutely
I had the exactly same point actually. Like the certain triggers that could bring back those memories that cause the PTSD. The
yes.
same thing, yeah.
Right, exactly. You guys are absolutely right. Sometimes there are specific situations, specific maybe sounds, visuals, smells that can bring back traumatic memories for people who've had any sort of unfortunate or traumatic instances in their lives. Right. So, yeah, great examples there, guys. All right, moving forward. So retrieval can basically be done in three major ways. One is recall, where we tend to recall information or get back information from our storage without the help of any retrievals, just like you guys have been doing so far. So you guys have been thinking about information and then getting them back without any particular retrieval cues, right? Recognition happens when we gather back information after we have had some sort of encounter with them. So it is information that we have previously learned, and now we just have to identify that information again. So it involves a process of comparison, right? Like taking a multiple choice test. So we have that queue in front of us. We know the answer is in front of us and it is there out of the four options. We just have to select the right one. So it is retrieval with the help of hints. And the third process of retrieval is relearning. So इसमें बेसिकली क्या होता है, रीलर्निंग इन्वॉल्व्स अ फिनोमेना जहाँ पे हम ऐसी कोई चीज़ वापस से लर्न करते हैं, वी रीलर्न इट, दैट समथिंग दैट वी हैव लर्नड इन द पास्ट, एंड इट विल बी ईजियर टू लर्न. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ एनी ऑफ यू हैव एनी एवर स्टडीड अ फॉरेन लैंग्वेज, जैसे कभी किसी ने फ्रेंच पढ़ी है या फिर संस्कृत पढ़ी है, राइट? सो यू गाइज माइट नॉट हैव read it for a few years now, 3 years, 4 years. But if I give you a text of the similar language, you might be able to pick up a few things or learn them faster than everybody else around you because you have already learned it in the past. So these three um, processes, subtypes, are the major ways of retrieving information. All right. So mm, we can move forward since it would need a slideshow. It's not happening. It's okay. We can move forward. Yeah. Um, who would be volunteering for this little activity here? All right. Okay. Zara, you have to see these 5 pictures and then you have to recognize them in the next scatter. Okay.
Yes, sure.
All right. You have 15 seconds to do that. Okay. We can move forward.
Yes. Okay.
Hanji, what all
Um,
the things that you saw?
the dog,
Mm-hmm.
the coffee mug,
Mm-hmm.
magnifying glass,
Yep.
balloon, and
Yes.
the book.
Exactly. Yes. Good job. So that is how recognition works, because we just have to identify them out of a lot of options. It is easier to do that as compared to recall, which does not have any cues available at all. All right. So moving forward to the major models of memory, the first one being the multi-store model of memory, which is also known as the modal memory uh, model, and it was given by Atkinson and Shiffrin, and they basically proposed कि हमारी memory जो होती है उसमें 3 separate memory stores होते हैं, which is the sensory memory store, the short term memory store, and the long term memory store. Okay. And information जो है it works in a linear sequence, which means it goes from one store to another in a line and travels in a linear way. So it was also called an information processing model. So basically how it works is that once a person attends to environmental stimulus, it goes to their sensory memory. एंड सेंसरी मेमोरी में जाने के बाद उस इंफॉर्मेशन पे जब हम अटेंशन प्रोवाइड करते हैं, व्हेन वी अटेंड टू दैट इंफॉर्मेशन इन आवर एनवायरनमेंट, फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू आर स्कैनिंग योर रूम, wherever you're sitting right now, you're just seeing it, but you're not attending everything that you see, right? And then you suddenly see that there's a lizard on the wall. You suddenly have your attention there, right? So that information tends to get processed better as compared to everything else that you are seeing right now. Okay, so once it is attended to, it then goes to our short term memory. अगर हम उसको उस information को बार बार recall कर रहे हैं, it's called maintenance rehearsals. Have you ever heard of it before? Just raise your thumbs if you have. Yes. Okay. So for anybody who does not know what maintenance rehearsals are, thank you, Yana. Thank you so much. All right. So for anybody who does not know what maintenance rehearsals are, there is basically a verbal or mental repetition of information. So जैसे हम बोलते हैं ना कि हम मन में ये चीज बोल रहे हैं, that बोलने वाला चीज is maintenance rehearsals. So as long as we are rehearsing that information, it stays in our short-term memory. And if once we start adding meaning or adding some sort of understanding into those rehearsals, we tend to take that information to our long term memory. So, that adding of meaning and linking that current information to new information that we are seeing is called elaborative rehearsals. So, that is how it goes to our long term memory. Any information which is not rehearsed enough tends to eliminate from our short term memory. And जो भी information होती है जो repeat तो होती है but उसमें meaning attach नहीं हो पाता, it does not go to our long term memory and it is often decayed. ठीक है? So this is how multi-store model of memory works. The next type of next model of memory is a working model memory model. So Badley and Hitch in 1974 they gave the working memory model, in which they said that short-term memory, it is a system of multiple components. So this model arose because the multi-store model was very simple. उस मॉडल में शॉर्ट टर्म मेमोरी को बहुत ही ब्रीफली या फिर बहुत ही सिंप्लीफाई करके समझाया गया था. एंड since they believe that short-term memory did much more than that, they gave this idea of working memory model, where, yes, Zara?
And another thing I wanted to ask was, are we also going to be doing levels of processing?
Yes.
Okay, so like that is another criticism point for the multi-store memory model,
Yes.
right?
Yes, right. You're absolutely right. Good job. Okay, so yeah, so we were on working memory model, and it, like Zara also mentioned, कि ये particular model and levels of processing model, both of them were generated because the multi-store model was far too simple, right? So basically what happened in this model was that the working memory was divided into three major chunks, which was the central executive, the phonological loop, which handled auditory information, and the visuospatial sketchpad, which processed all the visual and spatial information. And later, through follow-up research, episodic buffer was also added, which would integrate all the information across these systems. Okay, so let's just see how this particular model works in the next slide. Yes, so basically how it works is, just have a look at the picture. The input from our environment is gone to the sensory memory, right? Once it is attended to, rather than going to the short-term memory, it goes to the central executive. And that central executive is like a company boss. So what it does is, it does not process information, it just manages attention. it monitors and coordinates where the information is supposed to go. So it basically relays information. All the visual information, visual and spatial information that it is getting from its environment, it is sent to the visual spatial sketchpad. And any auditory information that it gets is sent to the phonological store. These are places where ये information सिर्फ store नहीं होती बल्कि process भी होती हैं. So earlier जो multi store model था, they just said कि short term memory में information process नहीं होती, but जो working memory है वहाँ पे storage and processing, both the things happen together, right? And once those informations are processed in visual spatial sketchpad and phonological store, the episodic buffer tries to integrate all the information together in the central executive, and then that integrated complex information is then sent to the long-term memory to be stored properly. So can you think of any example which would help us understand working memory model? Yes, Sarah?
I think I can give like one example for the inner voice that helps us like encode the like visual memory as well. Like let's say you're reading a book, and you're even though you're reading it in in your own mind, your inner voice is sort of like voicing out the sentences. So I think in the model also, that's the definition of inner voice, that even though your actual voice is not being heard, your brain captures that inner voice as like sensory memory in itself. So that becomes the input, and then you are able to memorize the text as well because of the inner voice.
Right, that's a great example. Thank you so much. All right, moving forward to the next model of memory. So if I ask you to pay attention to this particular picture, right? Just have a very good look at this particular picture so that we can move forward. Right, we can see kids playing in the playground. Some of them are dancing, some of them are playing in the sandbox, and some of them are coming down the slides. Right, let's move forward. So basically, the reason why we saw that picture was to understand the third model of memory, which is the levels of processing model, which was given by Craig and Lockhart in 1972. So this particular model, unlike the multi-store model, it is a non-structured approach. So multi-store model mein there was sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. This particular model mein those structures are missing, right? They basically say that it is not about where your information is stored that determines how well it is stored. Rather, how deeply it is processed determines how long-lastingly your information will stay. Any information which is processed in depth will be stored in a much more stronger way as compared to information which is not stored or processed properly. So they gave us three types of processing, shallow and deep processing दिया था उन्होंने, जिसमें shallow processing involves structural and phonemic processing, and the deep processing involves semantic processing. Right? So structural processing is just the appearance, the looks, the physical qualities. Right? If I ask you, for example, Vachi, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Did you see that picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember out of that picture?
So the kids were playing on the swings, and two kids were sitting in the sandbox, and two kids were dancing, and there were a lot of trees and greenery and buildings in the background.
Right. So basically, what you remember is more of the overall theme of the picture, that the kids were playing in the playground, right?
Yes.
Rather than exactly what the kids were wearing, what all colors were there. So rather than the physical qualities of the picture, you remember the semantic aspect of the picture.
Yeah.
Right? So this is exactly what the model proposed, that we tend to forget or not process physical and auditory information as deeply as with semantic semantic processes and information, right? Can we move forward? Yeah. So, what are the different factors that affect memory? So, memory can be impacted by a person's emotional state, that is, how they are feeling when they are processing information, when they are encoding information. There have been a lot of studies which tell us that any information which is processed or encoded in a happier mood tends to last longer, right, as compared to when a person is feeling low. The level of attention that they might have, the quality of sleep. When we are sleep deprived, there might be grogginess or cloudiness in our head. Any sort of stress and distraction can also negatively impact memories, right? Along with that, the amount of practice that we do, that is, how many times we're rehearsing it. Yes, Zara?
Uh, yes, ma'am. And in that emotional encoding or how emotion plays a role in that memory, could also like mean flashbulb memory, right? Like
Yes.
when so like you said, the good memories have a chance of lasting longer, but in that there's the limitation of the flashbulb memory as well,
Yeah.
because it need not be very happy memories. It could be like traumatic memories,
True.
but your brain takes like a snapshot of it, and that's why you can remember it better.
Yes, you're
and
absolutely.
and like you said, in fact, even the second condition, like level of attention, so when we take like a snapshot of information or like a an event that has occurred, with that we constantly like keep replaying it in our head, which solidifies the like accuracy of that memory. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, although there have been like reverse effects of flashbulb memory as well, where people only are confident about the fact that it happened or like it is a memory, but then they don't recall the information.
Right. Exactly. So definitely those are also part and parcel of our memory process. There is just not one side to every process. Anything that gets positively impacted can also be negatively impacted. So yes, you're right. Along with that, what is the nature of the material that needs to be remembered? What meaning it holds for us, whether or not we're able to understand and relate with the content, that also plays an important role. How concrete or abstract that particular content is, that also helps. And how we organize it. So we've already discussed about chunking and mnemonics and assimilation and clustering. So all of these factors together help in better or worse processing of memories. Right. So, just touching upon the main brain areas which are involved in memory, which are hippocampus, which is important for forming new memories and spatial navigation. So, it is the area which is the most important place for any sort of memory formation. The next one is the amygdala, which is involved in emotional memories, and the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for working memory, decision making, and retrieving long term memories. Right? So, all these structures they work together to process and store memories. So, just like Zara said, जहाँ पर भी emotional memories होती हैं, flashbulb memories होती हैं, there hippocampus and amygdala they work together, right? And even if you think about any happy memories of your life, like strong happy memories, there hippocampus and amygdala would be playing a role together. That is when the strongest memories are formed. How can we improve our memory? So, regular physical exercise, it enhances brain functions, it regulates our neurochemicals, dopamine and serotonin secretion. All of those things are maintained and kept in check with regular physical exercise. It may help in better retention and memory. Proper nutrition, so that your like the correct amount of nutrients and foods support your brain health. Adequate amount of sleep, so anything that you're learning throughout the day, anything that you're memorizing throughout the day, it gets consolidated only when you get good sleep. That is when your brain relaxes and processes all the information and sends it to the long term memory. So sleep is extremely important in memory. A lot of mental exercises like puzzles, reading, learning new skills, doing those little mental or memory activities, they can also help. And using memory aids like we discussed, mnemonics, chunking, associations, acronyms, and method of loci. So, moving forward to the memory disorders, the two major disorders are amnesia and dementia. Amnesia is basically the loss of memory due to an injury or illness, and dementia is a decline in memory and cognitive function, often in diseases like Alzheimer's, right? Both amnesia and dementia can either be organic, which means it can have biological basis, or it can be psychogenic, which means it has the cause of the amnesia or dementia is psychological, right? While dementia is primarily biological, but a lot of times it has been observed that people who experience severe depression can show dementia like symptoms. It is referred to as pseudo dementia, right? So, proper medical examinations are very important to differentiate between the two and see whether the person is experiencing dementia or pseudo dementia. All right. So, I think we are a little limited on the time today. So, let's just do the recall activities, and maybe we can do the fun activity, verbal memory, wala later sometime. Um, all right. So, who would like to answer the first one? Dash is a memory store with a phonological loop, visuospatial sketchpad, episodic buffer, and a central executive. There's something that we've just covered. Yes, Ashita.
Working memory.
Yes, fantastic. Right. The storage capacity of long term memory is? Yes, Pachi?
7 bits plus or minus 2.
No, that is short term memory.
Oh, right. Sorry. Essentially limitless.
Yes, exactly. It is limitless. Yes, you're right. Moving forward. The three functions of memory are? Yes, Zara?
Encoding, storage, and retrieval.
Great.
Option D. Yeah.
Yes, right. All right. So, what are the difference between implicit and explicit memories? Yes, Vachi.
Explicit memory refers to conscious and intentional recall of recollection of information,
Hmm.
and implicit memory refers to the unconscious and unintentional influence of information.
Right. Do you remember the subtypes of implicit and explicit memory?
Yes.
Which were?
Explicit, semantic, and episodic.
Yes.
Semantic is facts or general knowledge, and episodic is related to personal experience or events. And then under implicit, we have emotional and procedural.
Yes.
And procedural is how to do things, and
Hmm.
emotional is I think classical conditioning of
Yes.
emotional reaction.
Yes. Right. Thank you so much, Pachi. All right. According to that Kinson-Shiffrin model that we had discussed before, name and describe the three stages of memory. Who will sum it up for us? Yes, Sarah.
So the first stage of memory is the sensory memory or the sensory register.
Mhm.
Is where information is encoded through your senses. It's not exactly stored till that point. It is briefly there in the sensory register, waiting to be converted into short-term memory. So when we pay attention to the information that we've gotten from our senses, it converts into short term memory, which lasts for about 30 seconds at a time.
Mhm.
And the way the capacity of short term memory is from 5 to 9, basically. So um like
7 plus 9.
yeah, sorry, yeah. And then when we rehearse the memory that is in our short term memory, like if we keep rehearsing it or we keep playing it back, it converts into long term memory because we've paid more attention to it and we've tried to consolidate the information. And once it's into the long term memory, it becomes like the duration is limitless and the capacity is also limitless, indefinite. And from the long term memory, we can retrieve the memory.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sarah. And the last question of the evening, describe something that you have learned that is now in your procedural memory and discuss how you learned this information. Yes, Ashita.
So an example can be how we as kids learn how to swim. So then at that time we would like step by step learn like the different breathing techniques and how to move our arms and legs. But now if we were to swim now, we would do it without consciously thinking about it too much, and we would just be able to do it as it's part of our procedural memory.
Right. That I think that's a very good example. Thank you so much. Yes, you're absolutely right. So that sums up our topic for today, which was memory. And moving forward to the task that you're supposed to do for the week is that you all have to read up about classical and operant conditioning. You have to differentiate between the two, and you have to give 5 real life examples or applications of classical and operant conditioning each. Anything that you would like to ask or have a confusion about? All right. So if there's anything that you would want to know about, you can reach out to me. You can let me know. And thank you so much for being such a good audience, for being so interactive and receptive. So thank you so much, Zara, Ashita, Tashika, everybody who's here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And also thank you for accommodating initially with the technical errors. It was really interactive session. Hoping the same for future also. Thank you so much, Sabita. It was a nice presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to say I had a very fun time interacting, and even the presentation, I loved how it was not just about the information, but also like practicing the things you were learning. So yeah, it was extremely fun. Thank you.
You're welcome, Zara. Thank you for your inputs.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.